Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, please take a moment to complete the pre-survey if you haven't already. The performance will begin shortly. If you'd like to take advantage of closed captioning, we recommend that you use the YouTube live stream link and enable closed captions. We are having some severe weather here in Indianapolis where we're broadcasting from, so if we have any technology difficulties, please bear with us and know that if something happens with the weather or with technology in general and we are unable to continue, we will restream at a later date. So please bear with us. Again, please take a moment and take the pre-survey, which is posted in the chat section. And if you need help accessing closed captions on YouTube, Carlton Smith is in the chat and available to help direct you with those.
Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, take a minute to complete the pre-survey if you haven't already, and the performance will begin shortly. And remember, if you need closed captioning, take advantage of it through the YouTube live stream link to enable closed captions. And help is available if you need help with closed captions.
Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're just here reminding you to please take the pre-survey if you have a moment, if you haven't done so already, and we'll begin broadcasting shortly at 8 o'clock. A couple other announcements if you're just joining us. We are having some severe weather here in Indianapolis where we're broadcasting from. So if we have any difficulties with technology, please bear with us and know that if we are unable to continue streaming for some reason, whether it's technology or the weather or both, we will find a way to stream this at a later date. But please do bear with us this evening with the weather and technology. And if we can't see you out there, we know that you're there joining us, but if you all would like to take a collective breath with us and just send your most positive vibes to the technology friends out there in the ether to support us, that would be wonderful. And we will begin shortly here at 8 o'clock.
So good evening, everyone. If you're just joining us, take a moment to fill out the pre-survey. The pre-survey should be on the reminder that you have in your email, and the performance will begin shortly. If you like to take advantage of closed captioning, we recommend using the YouTube live stream link and enable closed captioning that way. And again, the survey link is in the chat if you want to access it that way as well.
If you're just joining us, welcome. If you've been here a few minutes, I apologize that you're listening to us repeat this message. But if you are just joining us, please take a moment and complete the pre-survey if you haven't done so already. You should see a link for the pre-survey in the chat. And also, if you'd like to take advantage of closed captions, we recommend using the YouTube link to view the performance. And if you have any difficulty getting your closed captions started, Carlton is there monitoring the chat and can help you get started with that. We are having some severe weather here in Indianapolis, so if anything happens with the weather that prevents us from continuing streaming, we will either get back with you this evening or stream at a later date. And we'll begin in just a couple minutes here.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us this evening. If you're just logging on, please take a moment to complete the pre-survey if you haven't already, and the performance will begin shortly. If you'd like to take advantage of closed captioning, we recommend using the YouTube live stream link and enable closed captioning that way. We are experiencing some severe weather in Indianapolis, so bear with us through any kind of technological issues, and we'll begin shortly. Oh, good evening, everyone. I just want to give one more reminder to fill out the pre-survey if you haven't already, and we'll begin momentarily. All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Sierra Milton. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a third-year clinical doctorate occupational therapy student at Indiana University.
And my name is Sally Wasmuth. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an assistant professor and researcher in the Department of Occupational Therapy at Indiana University in Indianapolis.
Black Voices in OT is a play based on narrative interviews with Black occupational therapy practitioners and students. This project is a partnership with our OT colleagues at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Lynn Wakeford, Khalia Johnson, Brianna Caldwell, and Kiera Peak. It is supported by the IU Racial Justice Research Fund and Indiana Minority Health Coalition, and produced in partnership with Summit Performance Indianapolis. Summit is a women-focused theater company that seeks to promote racial, ethnic, and gender equity on and off the stage, and to provide a space for critical community conversations about equity. Black Voices takes place in 2020. It is set on an online platform such as Zoom, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with by now. So what you're seeing tonight is a stage reading of the play. It is performed by 3 wonderful actors, Candice Handy, Josiah McCruiston, and Zariya Butler. The 45-minute performance is immediately followed by a panel discussion moderated by Mitzi Wilson, a dynamic community leader and founder of Emerge Flourish, a community catalyst. Mitzi will talk with some of the people who were interviewed for this project, some of the artistic team members, and some of the members of the research team. I do want to provide a trigger warning before we begin. Many of the stories that inform the play are painful and may evoke some emotions or past trauma, especially for people of color. But please keep in mind that these are real experiences.
So again, I'm Sally Wasmuth, and Black Voices in OT, the play that you're about to see, was created using the IDEAS model. This model provides a framework for translating narrative interviews into a theatrical performance that addresses critical issues impacting occupational justice, such as anti-Black racism. I know we are welcoming a large audience of occupational therapy students and practitioners, and to you all, I wish I could say see you in San Diego, but I will say for now, see you on Zoom again next month. But we're also welcoming friends, family, and community members, some who may be unfamiliar with occupational therapy. So I want to say just a few words about the origins of this project. Occupational therapy is a profession that's devoted to establishing trusting, client-centered relationships to support a person's ability to participate meaningfully in the things that they enjoy, their occupations, the things that provide a sense of identity and structure, that tell us who we are individually and in relation to friends, family, and our larger society. The extensive negative impacts of anti-Black racism on health, well-being, and occupational participation of Black Americans are well documented and a primary area of concern needing to be addressed by occupational therapists. However, the majority of occupational therapists are white women. As a profession, we are not equipped to meet the occupational needs of a diverse society. As researchers and OTs on this project, we seek to illuminate and examine how anti-Black racism exists within OT so that we can begin a lifelong journey individually and a continual process of and commitment to change within our profession. We share the conviction that we must be a diverse profession if we are to meet the occupational needs of a diverse society. So we hope this work may have something to offer our field of occupational therapy, but also other healthcare professions working towards similar goals. As a white OT, one thing I hope that other white OTs walk away with tonight is an acute awareness of anti-Black racism and some of its effects, and a choice to maintain mindful awareness of this when engaging in everyday decisions and interactions, both in practice and in our individual lives. So with that, I'd now like to introduce our director, Mikael Burke, who will introduce the play.
Hey everybody, my name is Mikael Burke. Thank you so much for being here. It's really, really appreciated. I'm so excited for you to see this play. Most of the things that I wanted to say were beautifully said already. So I'm just going to say, please enjoy Black Voices in OT.
Hey, what is up?
What's up? Hey, it's been a minute.
Oh, I am so happy to see your beautiful faces.
Likewise. How are y'all doing? What you got going on?
Oh, I ain't got nothing going on, nothing but the usual. You?
I'm just tired. It's been a long day. You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you.
Oh.
And what are we drinking tonight? It's been a rough one, huh?
Yeah, it's been rough.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order then. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time.
Of course.
I just want to go ahead and focus in. Let's create this space of calm for ourselves and go ahead and turn inward and just breathe for a minute. Go ahead and inhale, exhale, and just think of the word soft. Yeah, we can be soft in this space. We don't have to perform here. All right, let's dive in. Highs, lows, victories, defeats, challenges, reflections, memories. What you got? Who wants to go first?
I've been thinking a lot about college recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, just little memories keep coming back to me. I'm not fresh out of school, but it's been a while for me. And I don't know, it's the way that some of these people have been acting at my job lately.
Go ahead, let it out.
Well, I'm going to start by saying there's a problem with diversity and leadership at my job, which I mean, big surprise there. And I've been working at this company for a while now, and you know my history with them. I left for about 18 months to get my master's, came back, and the director tapped me and said, we've got a position in management open up, and I think you should apply. So I applied. And she said something like, oh, you kind of gave an answer that we really didn't like, so that's why we didn't pick you. But the lady they chose came from outside of the school-based setting, and she didn't know school-based stuff. They then tapped me again for a second interview, and this time she didn't even really give me a reason why they didn't pick me. The third time came around, and they told me, you didn't sell yourself enough. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I was a CODA, I was a PTA, and now I'm an ORT. And no, an OTR. Woo. And that doesn't give me enough experience. I'm sure. I'm a military veteran. Like, come on now. Just the other day, they came around talking about, we've got another management position open, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done applying. I don't know if it was, let's put their name in the hat so we can say, look, we had a Black applicant apply 3 times. I don't know.
That is so frustrating. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is frustrating. But thank you.
I didn't know you were applying for management positions.
I don't want to bring it up initially because I didn't want to jinx it. But now.
Well, I've been at my company for 14 years and I've never seen Black management.
Seriously? Dang.
But is that surprising to you? Look at our field. Look at your classes.
I know. I didn't have my first Black teacher till I was 15, okay? I get it. I go home to vent to my parents about the crazy stuff my professors say, but my parents grew up in the 60s, so they're like, okay, pass the salt. I'm just trying to be a little more optimistic these days, to be more kind with my assessment of other people in my program.
It's not about pessimism or optimism or even kindness for me. I'm just stating the facts and calling it like I see it.
I know.
Listen, I'm going to put this as simply as I can. I've seen this kind of interview process before and I'm over it. This just happened recently. I had a pre-OT student that was a mentee of mine that was interested in doing a rehab aid role, and she was a superb top candidate. And you know, I talked to my manager about her, and suddenly there was all this buzz and all these other levels of management saying all these great things about her, saying, you know, she'd be a great asset. And well, she was blocked by human resources. And it didn't come out until like a couple of months later because we had reached out to human resources. And so, of course, they said, oh, yeah, we'll get back to you. But they never did. 2 months later, they hadn't filled the position and hadn't reached out to the student either. We never got an answer from them as to why. It was just, you know, she had a Black sounding name. She's of African heritage. And we know there's research that's out there. I'm not going to say that's for sure what it is, but in looking back and really thinking about it, I don't want to knock your optimism or pessimism or whatever sort of ism you choose to bring in this space, but I want to remind you that you don't have to put on any sort of performative fronts. I'm over that. My sister said this statement recently. So many of us are trying to be the quiet Black person in the room so we aren't perceived as angry. And I'm personally over that. People can call me pessimistic or angry. So be it. Sorry.
No, it's cool. I hear you.
So if you're not applying for management jobs right now, what are you going to do?
I don't know. I need a drink. Somebody else talk. How it lasts.
Oh gosh, school.
Getting along with everyone?
Well, actually, I was going to bring that up. I went to a predominantly white high school, so being around white people was just kind of normal for me. But again, I don't know. I've just always been the type of person where I don't think about it, you know? When I present myself to you, no matter how you look at me, how you perceive me based on race or whatever, you're going to know she's a hard worker and she knows what she's doing. And nothing is really wrong. It's just at times I feel isolated and I can't tell if it's a race thing or if I'm just making it up in my head.
Tell us more.
Okay. I feel socially isolated when it's like as a class, but when it comes to a group of friends or even individually, I don't get that sense. Like when the topic is just, oh, let's go get something to eat, I'm not thinking, oh, I'm Black, they're not going to want me to go grab lunch. But when it comes to something racially charged, there can be a state of awkwardness. And in those cases, I guess the isolation feels magnified.
How many African Americans are in your cohort?
I'm the only one. There's one Black person in the year under mine.
What? Ooh, that's hard. There are only 2 of you?
Yeah, there's only 2 of us.
I remember one of the first places I worked, there was nobody African American there. I just didn't really fit in with any of them. And one time I heard my supervisor talking about me. She said something like, do you feel she's not confident or something? Which isn't accurate about me now, and it certainly wasn't accurate about me then.
Oh, we know. We know.
Exactly. And I am very confident when it comes to treating. I just felt uncomfortable around them. I would go eat lunch in my car. It wasn't a good supportive environment anyway. And I'm not saying that just because there were no African American people there, but that was a component.
That is exhausting. Just being the only one. You don't always have the privilege of being friends with your coworkers, I would say, because it can always go sideways, and then it's more likely to hurt you than them. That's why this virtual space we've created is so important to me. I need this.
Yeah, because sometimes I just want to look at somebody across the room and be like, did you hear that? Please tell me I'm not crazy.
Me too.
I do have classmates who are really nice and I get along with them fine, which is why I said that nothing's wrong. Not really. But sometimes when something racially charged is said by another student or even from a professor, my classmates won't do anything. They'll come up to me after class and be like, wow, that wasn't cool what she said. And I'm like, you think? Why didn't you speak up? And I guess with the faculty, I feel like it's harder to connect with them than my classmates. Like one of my professors tried to make a Medea joke. And when I asked her about it, her response was, I'm Hispanic. I'm a gay Hispanic woman. You don't think I understand? And I said, nobody knows who Medea is except for me, the only Black person in here, and you. It wasn't funny.
Listen, I once had a college professor ask me if I was a single mother.
Really?
Wait, was this the same one who called you ghetto?
No, that was a different one.
Wait, what? Single mother ghetto?
Yes, okay. So one, I had a professor, a man, call me ghetto. I had a phone case that had a bunch of glittery rhinestones on it, and he was like, oh, that's very, that's kind of ghetto, don't you think?
What?
Yeah, I know. And two, I had a professor assume I was a single mom. And I was looking like, girl, I've been here for 3 years. You know I ain't got no kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember my classmates kept saying, well, she just knows you really like working with kids, so that's why she made that mistake. Yeah, okay. I could give her that if it was my first year, maybe. And there's nothing wrong with being a single mother. Single mothers are resilient and loving and hardworking, but why did she assume? This is also the same professor who got me and the other African-American girl in the program mixed up all the time.
Back when I was in college, I was taking statistics class. And when I went into the class, I had a 3.8 GPA. Now, the first test, I think I got like a B or something. So I walked up to the professor and I was like, hey, is there anything else I can do to make sure I'm studying well or studying the right material? And she pulled me aside and said, I think you should change your study group. And at this time, I was working with some other Black students studying. And I kind of got the meaning that she didn't want me studying with them anymore. So, like, if I studied with them, I wouldn't get that edge. So I did mixed groups, and I went to her recommended group and found out that they had material from a previous class. That was their edge, cheating.
Dang.
I had something like that happen to me too. I remember my peers would ask me to look at their papers. I had an aptitude for syntax, grammar, all of that, still do. I know for a fact that a lot of times when I would read my white counterparts' papers and they would be full of errors, and yet at the top of their page might be a 94. My African American counterparts' papers would be just red and bloody all over, and their grades would be 60s and 70s. Honestly, there's no way any professor could have read those other papers and come to a grade because there were no marks on spelling, no marks on grammar. Those papers looked like they hadn't been read. And so to me, those were systemic attempts to get us out of that program.
I, I don't think anything was ever that overt for me. I'm trying to remember, and I mean, I definitely had some more subtle stories.
Tell us.
Well, I'm a child of an immigrant, and my parents are from Haiti. So I remember one time a classmate, or no, we were in class and we were learning some about different cultures. And something came out about voodoo and how they cast spells on people and this and that. And then this one girl was like, so do you like practice that when you leave class?
That is not subtle.
You're right. I mean, she was real bold. Like, I was like, why would you ask me that?
I've got some stories.
Well, yes. Story from college. I want all the deets.
Okay, I got a good one. So, one of my classmates cried because, okay, so we went through an activity that was literally like The Office. You know, the one where they pull the cards and they have to act like whatever card they pull. We had giant sticky notes around the room with like different cultural groups. So like Black, Muslim, and we had to go around the room and write on the sticky notes what we thought about those particular cultural groups. So one of the cards said white, and someone wrote racist on a sticky note because, and I made a comment about how on the card that said Black, people wrote thugs, gangs. And I said, I think it's interesting how only the results of systemic racism are listed. So like gangs are listed there, but not poverty or, inadequate access. Why can't we take a step further and be like, why is that the reality? It was literally a disaster because one of my classmates, oh my gosh, it gives me a headache just thinking about it. One of my classmates starts crying, like, I can't believe someone wrote racist under white people because the media portrays us as racist and it makes us seem like we're all that way. And I literally had to sit there. I was like, bro, I'm sorry, but I cannot right now. That was the most ridiculous, portrayed as racist. For people who love the American flag so much, y'all don't really be knowing what happened.
That was good.
Oh my gosh. Did I tell you all how I got into it with one of my classmates about Colin Kaepernick? That was a disaster.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was not good. I'm just getting tired of being the one who has to encourage others to think about different perspectives.
Do you feel that puts you at a disadvantage?
What do you mean?
Like, because you're at the center of all these conversations.
Oh, yeah. I think it definitely has put me at a disadvantage with some of my classmates. I've seen what people have posted online after this past year, and everyone in my cohort has been very divided. And now it's like I've seen what someone posted on Facebook, and now I'm supposed to go to a study group with you. Well, now I'm questioning your values, so I'm going to distance myself, which leaves me out of study groups. It's just so frustrating to be in the middle of school trying to study and get a paper done while also having to be the mouthpiece for Black people. And sometimes I feel like I'm just not even heard. Like, I was in a Zoom study session and it was me and a bunch of my white classmates and then my other classmate who was Indian. And she and I were just talking, spreading ideas around. But when it came to time to make decisions, my white classmates, completely ignored me. And she had to step in because no one paid attention to what I said. But then someone else said the same thing, and the whole group was like, oh, that's a good idea.
I remember that struggle. I felt the same way when I was in school. Still do. Like, they're listening, but they aren't really hearing me. And so when, like, what's the point of me talking? Like, what is the point of me talking about things if you're not going to listen to me yak away and then internalize what I'm saying and then actually do something to bring about change?
So then how did your school handle the events of last summer with the massive shift in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Mm-hmm. Did you feel supported? Because when I was in OT school, we were still fresh off of the killing of Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, and all that stuff. I was living in a white world in a very volatile time for Black people. It felt like the people in my program couldn't care less.
I don't know if I'm ready to talk about that.
That bad?
Just really disappointing.
How so?
They didn't say anything at all while the brunt of it was happening. They talked about it 3 months after the fact.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. And the impact they could have made was definitely decreased because they waited so long to talk about it. I feel like they were kind of riding it out to see how long the Black Lives Matter movement would last.
Newsflash, it'll never stop.
Exactly. But then when they did send out a statement about it, it wasn't even the occupational therapy department. It was the school at large, like the university. It just made me really sad because I want to feel supported by my department. And then, oh wow. We had a class where one of my classmates gave a presentation. We were assigned a decade, and then we had to talk about what OT was doing during that decade. And this particular classmate, she had to present from like 2010 until the current year. And she chose to talk about police brutality. She started saying that it wasn't a real thing and that we need to support our police officers because they're protecting us from these dangerous people. And I raised my hand and I was like, what does this have to do with OT? I just couldn't believe it.
That's a lot to handle, especially with how hard things were last summer. I'm sorry your classmates and your department weren't supportive of you. Some of these programs have to put actions behind their words. You know, it's easy to write up an email and say, you know, we care about you. But for something to actually be done, that's a different story.
Thank you. What about you? Have your jobs been handling things since this past summer?
My CEO's a mess.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Back when everybody and their cousin was trying to say Black Lives Matter, our CEO sent out an email saying, we want to stand with our colored employees.
Ooh, wait. Whoa, what?
You heard that right. Our colored employees.
Okay, stop saying that.
We were like, did she read this before sending this email out? I mean, it wasn't really that bad.
To you.
It was a nice attempt to address it, but it was just like, wow.
Yeah, wow. That's not a good look.
No, it wasn't. I want my coworkers to have an understanding of basic vocabulary.
Right. Uh, they keep throwing words around like biased. Like, let's talk about our implicit biases. And I'm like, nah. I want you to say systemic racism. I want you to say anti-blackness. I want you to speak these things and be aware of them.
How are things for you at your job?
Well, no one reached out to me to see how I was doing. I had to go to my supervisor for that. And there have been several coworkers who are trying to understand this phenomenon of white privilege. And now I'm the person to talk to. Oh, now they just walk up to me and say, I feel like I can talk to you about this. Like, even the vendor who brings me my splints and stuff pulls me aside.
Oh, no.
Yes. And I'm like, it's like every day I was explaining white privilege to somebody. I was finally like, all right, it's been not fun. I need a break.
Goodness, what did they say?
Yeah, they were like, you don't, you're not, that's not how you are. And I'm sitting there thinking, what do you mean that's not how I am? I kept asking, have you ever experienced stuff like that? Yes. Yes. Every story I told you is from my own experiences.
Oh my. I really don't get it. Like, how do y'all get through?
You manage, it gets easier. You find your people.
How?
I think it's different for everyone. I didn't find my people until I got out of school. I was desperate and I thought, this has got to change if I'm going to survive. I met most of them through LinkedIn. I started cold messaging people saying, hey, I'm interested in creating this group of African American women in healthcare. Are you interested? And I sent that out to maybe 100 people, and 5 to 10 of them responded. And so now out of that group, there's a core network of us where we support each other. We're all trying to manage and get through in spaces where we don't see people who look like us.
Yes. And there's a lot of places that are there are just a lot of places that have been established too. The Black OT Caucus exists. There's social media pages. I would say, one of my mentors, it was my first year of OT school. It was me and another Black OT student in her class. She took us under her wing, and she was very well known in the OT community. So she was just kind of dragged us along with her. So we were seen by different environments. So she knew that these different type of people seeing us would build our reputation. And I think that she wanted our reputations to speak for themselves.
That's really great.
Mm-hmm.
And there are others who will support you. Sometimes you have to look for them, but they're there.
Yes.
One of my former managers, I knew her for many years. She had my back in pretty much anything. If there was something I wanted to do, she would go to bat for me.
Oh, and one of my fieldwork educators, she really took the time to connect with her patients. She left her biases at the door, and you could really see that she worked with people. it wasn't like she was only chatty with her white patients or something like that. No, I could see her rapport with her patients of color. And you could see how they just opened up to her.
There was a girl I was mentoring a while back. She told me about how the faculty at her school actually rallied around her to support her when she failed an anatomy class. She had met with the board of people at her school. She did so well. She went in and she told them how being one of two African Americans in her cohort was difficult. She explained how it was hard for her to adjust and that she didn't have support. They ended up telling her they knew they needed to do better in the program and that they wanted to bring in more diversity. I remember they tried to help her out more. Her advisor was also a minority, and she and her advisor started having more meetings. They tried to put her in touch with other minorities in the community that would help with research and volunteering.
Mm. Ooh, I really connected with this other Black OT in one of the online groups I follow. She talked about how when she was a student, her CI, clinical instructor, was very aware of cultural nuances. One of her patients wouldn't want to get out of bed or do something, and her CI would send the Black OT in, and she'd say, "You go in and try because there are things that you can say that I can't." Apparently, she would just kind of hang back and let the OT do her thing.
That sounds a little bit like tokenization.
I don't think this particular RT was bothered by her CI doing that.
Mm.
From what she shared, it seemed like she valued their differences, and that's a good thing.
My cousin decided she wanted to go be an OT because of me. Before me, no one in my family knew what the heck OT was, but they figured it out, you know. And now my little cousin is going to an HBCU, and two of her friends there are OTs and are also African American. And her roommate is from Bermuda. They work well together and support each other. That's what's working for her.
Mm. Baby, basically, this is our long way of saying that your people are out there.
How are you feeling?
Better. I guess I never really thought that my support system might look different than what my white peers have. I think that's been the hardest part. My family has always been so close to me. Now I'm farther away. Literally, my parents have given so much for me to be here.
Mm. It's good that you recognize that.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it any easier though. My mom has been my main supporter. She wants me to get through college because I'm first generation.
Hey, and that, oh, and you're honoring her and the rest of your family with what you are doing. That's good.
And even though you might feel isolated and alone, being an African American woman is actually to your advantage.
What do you mean?
You gotta spin it. You may not have any other African Americans in your class, but do you have other African Americans around you?
I do. Oh, there are two Black ladies at the front office. I like them a lot. I walk in and they're like, "Hey, baby." They make me feel at home.
And you know, it's possible that being African American helped you get accepted into the program because they're trying to diversify. You're a strong candidate. You're a hard worker.
You deserve to be where you are,
Mhm.
even if your peers don't always make you feel that way.
Thank you.
Of course. So I guess we should talk about the really tough stuff, right?
What have been some of the lows? We're here to listen.
Well, my CI told me that I needed to be more likable.
What?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't inherently racial, but she was like, you should lighten up and be a little more perky and just try to be more likable. Who is determining that I'm not likable? My patients love me. I'm goofy as hell out around here, so I'm not understanding. And I know my stuff and I'm very direct because I move fast. I have a lot of responsibilities. But they obviously never say things like, oh, you're just direct and fast because you come from a city that is known for that. It's always, you're aggressive. Like, you know a lot of information, so you're just a lot for people sometimes.
Oh, that sounds frustrating.
It is. Oh, and for my level 1, well, there was this group of little 6-year-old boys, and my clinical instructor was like, all right, what's this one? But she was asking one of the little boys, and while she was doing that, a little white boy was getting all up on a little black boy's nerves, and he just kept talking to him. He just kept talking and talking, and the black boy said, stop talking to me. I don't like it. And that would have been the perfect opportunity to say to him, wow, I really like how you explained how you felt calmly and you asked him to stop. You didn't use your hands. You didn't get out of your chair. But what the teacher said was, don't be rude. That is so rude. Don't tell him to stop talking. He was just sitting there doing exactly what he was supposed to do. But he's a little black boy, so he's got to be polite. Be polite. That's condescending. And you're not his parent. That's not your jurisdiction. And I feel like if I was a white person, I would feel extra conscious of that dynamic. But they don't think about it. They're just like, kids. And they don't even she didn't even realize that she did that.
Ooh, don't get me started on the abuse I've seen from and heard from others. Again, when it comes to black kids.
What do you mean?
Therapists will use excessive force holds. My CI, she used to do that. She would hold a kid in a chair, maintaining that force until they stopped moving. But with other kids, she might use a weighted blanket or, turn on some music, start singing or whatever.
Wow.
You just need to make sure you are paying attention so you can be a good advocate. The first job I got out of school, I did meal planning and stuff. And the patients were usually Hispanic and Black. The other OTs were usually white. So I got a lot of comments like, ooh, y'all's food is usually unhealthy, so we're gonna be eating quinoa.
Ew.
I was like, should we be focusing on the patients who doesn't even like quinoa? Like, we just got to show them how to eat and the way they should eat. Not everyone is aware. And how we speak to each other, how we educate, how we provide care for each other. These are all influenced by our biases we carry.
Some people are aware, though. They know exactly what they're doing. When I was doing my field work, my CI used to say things like, you're just not like me. You just need to be more like me. It was the pediatrics outpatient, and I would watch her call the white kids unregulated or dysregulated, or she would say they needed more input. But the African-American kids were bad or oppositional and all those other things. That environment was difficult. And it was interesting how she treated me, how she handled me. And then 4 weeks before I was done, I had a 16-year-old kid with autism, nonverbal. And he was freaking out about something that had happened right before therapy. And he got a hold of my hand and was pulling me around the gym, like flinging me. He was 6'1", swinging me around the gym. I could not get my arm loose. She would not help me. She stood there. He swung me around for about 15 minutes. And he tore my radiator cuff my rotator cuff, and I had to have surgery right after graduation.
Oh my goodness.
And the argument there was that he was a tall African-American boy acting a fool in the gym, and she didn't know what to do. She was like, you can handle it. But I was a student. How do you let somebody do this to a student? And she wanted me to fail because you need to be more like me. You need to act more like me. You need to act more like me and sound like me. You need to treat the patients like I do. So this was giving her an opportunity to watch me fail at something, and she thought I was going to have to stop field work. So as soon as I got hurt, she was like, do you think you should take a break? Maybe start field work over? 4 weeks before graduation, I was like, what? I put a sling on. I wore a sling. I picked up my kids with my left arm and I made it through. It pissed her off. And she had to pass me because she didn't have anything that she could say that was consequential. But let me tell you, supplemental bias and that disposition affected me because I still live with the consequences of my shoulder surgery, and she's going on with her life.
I didn't know that happened to you. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I don't talk about it much anymore. Anything you want to say about the hardest parts of your week?
Well, I don't know what your experiences are or is with this, but do people ever seem surprised that you're the OT? Like you walk into the hospital room and they think that you're the nurse?
It used to happen to me all the time when I was younger.
Did it drive you crazy?
It used to. Then I just started letting those sorts of things bounce off me. I just smile and extend my hand and say, oh, hello, I'm your therapist. And watch the look of shock spread over their faces.
But sometimes patients say other things, right?
Well, yes, I guess we can talk about it. I work in brain injury, so I've been called all sorts of things. The N word, the B word. Most of the time they have brain injury, so I won't say they don't mean it, but they typically don't mean to say it out loud. I've had patients tell me they don't want to work with me because they prefer not to. I've actually had an African patient say he did not feel I was qualified and he wanted the best OT they had on staff. So that one caught me off guard a little because I was like, I've actually been to where you're from and I was excited to know you, work with you.
What does management do in situations like that?
It kind of gets blown off like people are going to say that they're the patient, they're upset, they have a brain injury. There's an excuse.
What are we doing if we're going to continue to bring Black OTs into this harmful system? That doesn't, like, how are we going to continue to bring bright, brilliant Black OTs into this system that doesn't even take their own side?
I wouldn't even know how to respond if a patient said something like that to me.
In the moment, I've definitely said, that's not acceptable. I'm going to leave you right here until you calm down and we can talk about it later. You know, I try to redirect or de-escalate. I do let them know that they are going to respect me the same as I provide them with respect. And for others, like the people who have asked for a different therapist, I say, you are more than welcome to have another therapist. My goal is to help you be independent. Hmm? I don't let that one get to me. It's irritating because it makes it seem like they're patient complaints when they're not. People are just racist. So I just let it be what it is, but I document everything. If you don't, they'll write bad things about you. And then it's like, I didn't even see this patient. So I just make sure to document.
What are you doing?
This is some heavy stuff, and I need some aromatherapy because, honey, I need to cleanse. Oh, okay, but no, seriously, sis. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Is it always going to be like this?
Like what?
In our careers, like as I move forward and pursue this career, is it always going to be like this?
No, no, no. I enjoy my job on a daily basis, and I don't believe our field will always be lacking in the areas of Black OT.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier. How many African American faculty members do you have?
I don't have any. We've had one Black guest speaker though.
One,
Yeah, we definitely need more than just one guest speaker. We need African American voices in the classroom. From a professional viewpoint, we need to have someone there.
I like that.
and not just someone to speak about Blackness.
No, we can speak about other things, specialties. Representation is important. Do you have pictures of African Americans in your textbooks?
No, actually, I don't know if I've actually seen a picture of a Black person in any of my textbooks. Maybe I've seen a few people of color. It's very sporadic, and if it is a person of color, it's obvious that they're obese or they have type 2 diabetes, or if they're Black, they're always poor. Lots of stereotypes that I'm just like, can we switch it up a little bit?
You know, okay, how about this? Do you know how the SATs are written? They aren't written for us. I had to go through that awakening in that sort of way. I remember the first time I was reading a textbook for class about anatomy, and the book talked about how someone's lips might turn blue, but for people of color, our lips would never turn blue. They might look ashy or white, you know? And I also remember the textbook says with infections, look for signs of redness. You're not going to see or be looking for any signs of redness on Black skin.
Do you think your program values diversity?
And do you learn about racial issues pertaining to occupational justice in your program?
No. What is this, a quiz? If you're trying to prove a point, I get it. into your question, talking about race is professor specific. Some professors never bring it up, and some professors say they want to talk about it, but then somehow I end up being the spokesperson.
We've got a ways to go.
I know.
We're not trying to overwhelm you.
Yet you are.
I just want you to have some perspective. I want you to see the bigger picture. Do you like being Black?
I love being Black.
Good. And why did you want to be an occupational therapist as a Black woman?
Because we look at all the areas of your life and how to make you the best and safest you can be, and doing it on your own. Occupational therapy is where we can honestly incorporate the whole person, because not every Black person has the same experience, but we do have the minority thing in common. People come to us and we help them. I won't say the world is treating them differently or being rude to them, but people who come to us are seeking help so they can easily function in society. And that's something we have experience with because we try to function in society hoping someone doesn't make the wrong assumption about us. We think, I'm just trying to get to where I'm going. And they want the same thing. It's just for them, it's a physical disability or a psychological disability, cognitive, all those things. Black people are needed in occupational therapy, mental health, healthcare, overall, due to the lack of cultural experience. So many Black people don't trust the healthcare system because it's always failed us. And I feel like being a Black OT can help make someone feel better about getting services. And it's also about cultural awareness. Like, not everyone is going to know that when we, like when my mom used to rub the little vapor rub on my chest, or my grandma used to make me drink that ginger ale to fix everything, you need a Black OT to tell you, no, 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 that's our natural healing. You gotta have cultural awareness. And it means something to people when their loved ones need help and I walk into the room and they see someone who looks like them.
What do you want for the future of OT?
I don't know. I guess I'd want more outreach.
Outreach where?
We need to start branching out into schools because I didn't know Black people were OTs. It took my best friend's cousin getting shot for me to figure out what an OT was. I feel like there's a lot of students who would probably be interested in OT if they knew what it was and what we do. I wish schools would get more involved in the community. Where I live is super diverse. They should be reaching out to the high schools in this area and letting the students of color know about occupational therapy. And I guess I want people to take their blinders off. We got to let go of these preconceived notions about what we think is going on right before our eyes. I think we need to stop pretending things are fine because they're not. Like, they're not fine in our homes, they're not fine in our workplaces, but controversy is disruptive to dollars, so people just continue with their rose-colored glasses on. They say, our Black employees are good, they're happy, but that's just not true. I want people to shift their thinking to see that there's a dynamic that needs to be changed across the board. And people aren't always open to that. They start thinking, oh no, I have to change. Not only do the policies and procedures have to change, but I have to change. And what does that look like?
And you said you didn't know what you want. I think you said that perfectly.
You're right where you're supposed to be. So we keep going, and we keep studying, and we keep analyzing, and we keep asking the hard questions. But remember, you are not your job. So step away when you need to. Fall into your community. We are here. Find others. We've got you.
All right. Well, I hate to break up this little love fest, but I want to take a bath and smell some more of my candles. And you should probably go study. And you, ain't it your bedtime?
Very funny. I'll see you beautiful humans in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Stay soft.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Be your moderator for this evening, and I'm excited to join you all in conversation around Black voices in OT. And we'll wait a few moments for all of our panelists to join us. And as we're doing that, I want to offer thanks to Josiah McCruiston, Zariya Butler, and Candice Handy for their performance in bringing Black voices in OT to life. And as we're in this transition as well, recalling back to the beginning of the play, I welcome us all into a collective breath. So as it's right for you, taking a good inhale and exhale. And with that, we'll begin our first panel of the evening. Joining us, we have Alicia Ford, Kimberly Anderson, and Sierra Milton. And so welcome. I am so excited to have the three of you here to share a little bit more about your role with the Black Voices in OT. And so to start off our conversation tonight, can you share how you are connected to the play? And let's start with you, Alicia, and then we'll move to Sierra and Kimberly.
Absolutely. So I am currently a pediatric occupational therapist. I went to school up in the New England area, and so I was one of very few Black people in my cohort. And I was interviewed and felt that this was something really important that should be kind of displayed to OTs and people in other professions, because it's really important to talk about diversity.
So I had the pleasure of actually conducting majority of the interviews that went into informing the play, and I'm an occupational therapy student. And yeah, it was beautiful. I'm so glad everything came to life, and yeah.
Thank you. And Kimberly.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm an outpatient OT practitioner. I participated in one of the. I thought that it was really valuable to be able to share the experiences of OTs who go to programs. I graduated in 2005, and I was the only one. And probably in the last 5 years, there's been a significant change, but our experiences within our clinic settings are very similar to the academic setting. So I was very happy to be able to share.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge the thanks and the gratitude that we're seeing in the chat. And so with that, I'm curious as to what motivated you all to participate in this project. I think it'd be helpful just to start off with Sierra in terms of kind of what started off this project, and then Kimberly and Alicia.
Yeah, so Dr. Rossmuth and I have partnered on a couple theater-based projects through the IDEA model. And the first one I did was about Black women's experience in healthcare. But I think it's really important during this time, especially to turn the lens inward. And occupational therapists, we value helping people promote equity and create equity within their lives. But I think we have to look inward and look at our profession and see how we're able to help our profession before we start helping other people.
Thank you. And Kimberly.
So I'll second that in order to do any sort of equity work or just anything in terms of helping our clients with occupations, we need to be able to understand our clients as well as our colleagues and those around us. And one of the things that I would hope to see within our profession is that we'll be able to better understand our clients through understanding our peers in our OT programs and our colleagues. We cannot help them with anything with occupations, ADLs, anything in life if we do not have empathy. And so that is kind of where I'm hoping OT will go.
Thank you. Alicia.
I agree with everything that Kimberly and Sierra said, that we definitely need to look as a profession to know like how we can better serve our patients, their families, our clients, and our colleagues. And another thing for me was important for me to express my own personal experiences, because sometimes people, you hear things through the grapevine, but I feel like hearing it firsthand or from someone who's performing it is really powerful. And I think that a lot of people can take away a lot from this performance.
And kind of with that thread of just what, people can take away from the performance and offering your narratives, what was it like to be interviewed, on the topic and responding to the questions? And this is for Kimberly and Alicia.
I thought that it was wonderful. Where I live, there's not a lot of us. And so it was nice to be able to really candidly share experiences. It's kind of therapeutic. And I thought it would be a great way to give voice to things that, oftentimes don't get discussed. It's kind of just one of those things where you stuff it. It's just part of the inventory of what you go through in life as a Black American. So just very happy to be able to share the experiences specific to our profession. And hopefully that can be some sort of agent of change by sharing.
Thank you.
It was very therapeutic, being able to share my experiences, and then with watching the performance, getting to understand like how so many other people are in the profession that are like me and have very similar experiences. And so it's nice to just kind of get it out there, things that, you talk to with family about sometimes, but it's not a topic that's really discussed with colleagues. It's kind of, I'm gonna suck it up and I'm gonna go home and I'm strong and we'll leave it at that. So it's really therapeutic to kind of get it out there.
Thank you. And, one of the things that, we always want to lift up, is that to see the play as a performance, I saw a lot of folks speaking to feeling seen, through the performance, but also really highlighting that, these are aspects of personal narratives, of real experiences. And so, I thank you both for your contribution in that part. And for the three of you, wonder what it was like to, experience watching the play. And if you had the opportunity, also even seeing some of the comments and the feedback in the chat.
It was good. It was good. I want to give hats off to the actors and to Sally. This was a really good production. It was just really good hearing how some of the stories were translated. It was done really, really well. So I definitely appreciate that piece.
Yeah, to add to what Kim said, a lot of the stories that Kelsey, the playwright, put together were themes. So while they look like individual stories, a lot of them were reiterated in different people's stories. And I think she did a really beautiful job tying it together.
I agree. She did a really great job tying it together. And it just felt like sitting around with like friends, just talking and just understanding like, oh, this person had the same experience and I laughed. And, the actors also put a little bit of humor with that. So it made me feel like, oh, yes. Like, and then just seeing the comments of people, kind of saying like, oh, I felt like this and I completely understand. And we really need to talk about this. Makes me feel really good and really supported.
And so in thinking about this process and the conversation that is now started, what are the ways that you would like to see the profession evolve? Like what are some, changes that you are imagining or that you hope for?
Well, my hope is that we go from just conversations to more action-oriented things. So I'm all about doing assessments, also doing action plans, creating, there's performance metrics. It really gets into leadership and making change that way. You want to have some quantifiable measures. We have these lived experiences that happen in OT, but they're not unique to OT. They're very American. So we need to move from just the stories to actually some action steps. And so what I would love to see is each of our institutions, whether they're academic institutions or health centers or schools, coming up with very solid plans in terms of these are things that we're going to change. There are a lot of stories that were shared around, questions about, the story about the student who was from Haiti and the voodoo or being called ghetto. Those are things that as an institution of occupational therapies, we can address them, but we have to be intentional in saying we're going to take the time and get those assessments in place that exist, to help you. There are institutions that are doing it within OT and nursing and other professions, and it would be nice to see formally that that's done before our new group of OT and OTAs are getting into the profession. Because if it's not addressed in the student world, I can say as a clinician, it's going to be really harder for health and school-based systems, because at that level, it's really even more challenging. So that measurements using the tools that are out there, they already exist. It's just now using them.
Thank you. And I see lots of, feedback in terms of what you've said in terms of, having solid plans and moving forward with action. Alicia or Sierra?
Yeah.
I can go. So I think it's, like you said, coming up from leadership with action plans that can work. And I agree, starting at the school level so that we're preparing clinicians to really go out into the world and better serve our clients. And I think it even starts a step before that with just recruiting more, Black and Brown people into the profession, just so that we're seen in the classroom, so that we're not the only one in the cohort. But then as we begin to go through, students turn into practitioners and practitioners turn into clinical instructors. And so then just being able to kind of pipeline us all through so that in the coming years, so a student can walk into a classroom and they have a professor that looks like them, and they can go out onto field work and have a clinical instructor that looks like them, who's kind of come up through the support of all of these initiatives.
Thank you. And really touching on, also what we heard earlier in the play around that issue of representation and making sure that it's, that it's throughout from the education setting into the workplace and the other professional settings. Thank you. Sierra.
I think they summed it up beautifully. I think the last thing that I want to add is that knowing that inequity exists is not enough anymore. Knowing that these things are happening is not enough. Like, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable and make change. And if you're not willing to be uncomfortable and make change, nothing is really going to happen.
Thank you. And I think that is really kind of a critical note in this conversation, that we aren't just, on this screen to be in conversation, but to see change in action. And so, with that, that we have this kind of this time and this space together, I'm curious if you have a message for other Black OTs that are, on this, watching and, listening to this conversation this evening. Anything that you'd like to share?
Know that you're not alone. There's a large network of us across the country. If you're the only one or the only two in your program, work with what you have and reach out to those. This time in the pandemic has given a great opportunity to build networks virtually, create some virtual, just like, what we saw here, create yourself a virtual support group to help you get through, because a lot of this it impacts your mental health, it impacts your physical health. And so you need to take care of yourself. So find those support groups, get involved in the Black OT Caucus, reach out to those around you, literally in your local community and across the country. And if you cannot find an OT, get connected to other interprofessionals who are Black. There are Black social workers, there are Black psychologists. There's others that I recommend that you just connect with, so you have some sort of social. You can do it, keep going. We're glad you chose this profession.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, we have two amazing Black OTs in front of us right now. So, start with them, start with me. Through doing these interviews, I've met numerous Black OTs and Black OT students, and it's just created a network for me, and it's amazing. So you might have to do a little bit more work to get there, but those people are out there for you, and they love you, and they're going to support you.
We are out here and we're here to support anyone. And if anyone wants to reach out, there are Facebook groups, there's student groups, there are so many different groups that you can get yourself involved with, even if it's just to say, hey, I had a really tough day today and I need someone to let me know that I'm doing okay. And that, with us starting to come together and being able to reach out across the country, it's time for us to really come together and start to let, leadership know that, we need to make a change in the profession, and that, there are so many bright and brilliant Black OTs out here willing to do the work. And, we're all trying to come together and just make it through. Yeah.
Thank you. And your statements have been powerful and are really resonating with folks. And so with that, I just wanted to, pause as we close out our time together, but to see if you have any, last comments, final statements that you want to share, perhaps something I did not ask, but has been on your mind this evening before we close out.
Yeah, I would love to share that, one of the things that's being done with equity within BIPOC communities is this concept of health disparities for resolution. And so it's using this concept of using quality improvement, using racial data stratification. All that being said is that within our profession, if we are going to have change, we need to start measuring what we're doing with change. And so some of the equity work that we do, or diversity equity work, needs to be measured. We want to create key performance indicator. These are just basic management principles that we need to start applying to what it is that we're doing. And then we need to be able to look back and see, did we meet these percentages for the year? Did we meet the outcomes that we wanted for the year? We need to approach this from a leadership management perspective if we're going to have change. And as echoed before, we know that these stories are real, we know the things that we're aware of, but now we need to have actionable steps and we need to be measurable. And we know measurable because that's what we do as health professionals. But in terms of diversity, you can measure it, you can quantify it. It's just using these principles, creating KPIs, and then just implementing them and making sure that we're following up on those also.
Thank you. And before we move to our second panel, Alicia, Sierra, any final comments?
Alicia and Kim, thank you so much for, letting me interview you. And it was a pleasure getting to know you all throughout this process. And Mitzi, thank you so much for moderating.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be a part of this. And I'm glad that this is happening. And like Kim said, it's really time to take action.
Well, thank you so much for your contributions, both to the project that produced this play, being a part of Black Voices in OT. And so with that, we will move to our next panel, and definitely take time to check out the chat. And so we will, at this moment, shift to our second panel. Please stay with us. Hi. And for our second panel this evening, we have Khalia Johnson and Kelsey Johnson. And I'm pausing to see if we will have one more person on our panel. All right. Well, thank you for joining us this evening for our second panel on Black Voices in OT. And so I just wanted to have the opportunity for you all to introduce yourselves. So if you can share who you are and how you are affiliated with the play or your role in relation to the play. We can begin with you, Kelsey.
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey Johnson, and I'm the playwright. I wrote the play.
Thank you. Clea.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Khalia Johnson. I am an assistant professor in the Division of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy at UNC Chapel Hill. And I was one of the co-investigators of the study that helped inform the play with Dr. Lynn Wakeford and two of our students, Kiara Peak and Brianna Caldwell.
Thank you. And so to start off our conversation, I'm curious kind of what motivated you, to produce this play, to be a part of Black Voices in OT? And either of you can jump in.
So I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So the idea was brought to us by Dr. Sally Westmuth, and I think our entire team was just excited about it because it's not something that we have really seen in occupational therapy where, research data is sort of turned into a play. Like I know personally, I had not considered a play as a product of my scholarship. And I really thought it was a really innovative way to bring these issues to practitioners, but also people who are just interested in occupational therapy and healthcare in general. So we definitely appreciate the invitation and just excited and pleased about the product, Kelsey. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was so pleased to be able to do this. I didn't know anything about occupational therapy aside from knowing Dr. Sally Wasmuth. So Sally came to me and asked me to join in on the project as a writer. And as a storyteller, I was like, of course. So that's how I got involved in the project. It's so important to me to make sure that people feel seen. So to be able to do that, it's been an honor.
Thank you, Kelsey. And we've had another panelist join us. Welcome, Michael. If you could share how you are affiliated with the play and what motivated you to be a part.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, y'all. I'm Michael. I met you at the beginning, but I'm happy to be here again. I directed the reading that you just saw. And honestly, I think the thing that motivated me to be involved was I'm a theater maker. I'm a theater artist. But I know that the experience of being a minority practitioner in any field can be similar and have much overlap. And so I read this and I was like, I haven't been in these exact situations, but I've been in these exact situations. And so I wanted to, I thought, what a great opportunity to get to use, this thing that I do to help spread awareness and make all of the fields that we all work in across the board a bit more equitable.
Thank you. And you all are getting so much love in the chat. My next question is, as you were part of this process, what surprised you or stood out to you just from this experience of being involved in Black Voices in OT? And we can begin with you, Kelsey.
Yeah. Similar to what Michael said, I know what it's like to be the only one in certain spaces. And so as I was reading the stories, not a lot of things surprised me because I was like, oh, of course that would happen, unfortunately. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise to me. I was very surprised just in general because, like I said, I didn't really know a lot about occupational therapy before I started working on this. And so I was absolutely thrilled to hear the stories of people who are really passionate about what they do. But again, that wasn't surprising to me. It just thrilled me.
Thank you. And Clea.
Like Kelsey, unfortunately, I wasn't surprised too much by the stories, but there were definitely some interviews that they were gut-wrenching and would bring you to tears. I graduated occupational therapy school in 2006. So I've been in OT 15 years, and to hear from women who've been OTs 30 plus years and those who have transitioned into the profession a year ago, that our stories are so similar. It doesn't matter, if you went to a HBCU or PWI, if you live in an urban area or a rural area, like all of our experiences have been similar. And, part of me hoped that, across the data, we would see some improvement. Students had a lot more support than they did, from those who entered into the profession, 30, 40 years ago. But the unfortunate truth is it hasn't been that way. So yeah, I guess the surprise then on my end was just that here in a 40-year span, the stories have remained the same.
Thank you for offering that reflection, Khalia. Michael.
Yeah, similarly for me, I think the thing that was, I guess I'll say the thing that was surprising to me, knowing the purpose behind it and the intended impact of this piece, I think the thing that was a pleasant surprise was that it didn't just become, here are all of the things that I'm upset about. Because I appreciate that there were moments of humor and laughter and joy in spite of it all, because that is the truth that we all live every day. That we're still out here having a good time despite it all. So I think, that was a pleasant surprise when I first encountered the piece that I was excited to, delve into as we explored all this heaviness.
Thank you for that. And that, kind of brings me to a question that had been evolving in my head as I was watching the performance of just it appears that there is care taken, and presenting, these stories, these narratives in a way, a lot of folks spoke to to watching being therapeutic. And so I welcome the opportunity to hear more about perhaps some of the intention that went into both the playwriting and the production.
Yeah, so I modeled the play after experiences that I've had, especially within this past year, virtual spaces that I had to carve out for myself in the midst of the summer of 2020. And just sitting around with other Black women and being like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy that everything's happening, but then laughing at the same time. And those are the spaces that I've had to find throughout the course of my career. And I know I will continue to find. And so for me, I wanted the play to feel like that because that's very real to my experience. And even though I know that Black people, we are not a monolith. Wherever I go, I seem to find those spaces. We're doing that. We're laughing together. We're having a glass of wine, sometimes 2 or 3. And so I think, as I was reading the stories and the interviews, there were moments where there was laughter. And I wanted to make sure that I incorporated that because I do think, I just think that when you're in the middle of something, and I'm speaking from personal experience, that's really, really hard, even professionally, you got to find the space to laugh, and that there's a resiliency there. And so I just wanted to honor that. And even though this play, I feel like, it's a little window in, a lot of Black people already know this. I'm not going to say everyone because I don't know everyone's experience, but a lot of Black people already are having these conversations amongst ourselves. And so it really is a window in for other people. To see what goes on, I did kind of want to tip my hat and nod to the fact that, hey, y'all, like, I see you. I see you.
Thank you. And Michael.
Yeah, similarly, I just, it's just important to me always to make sure we find what are the moments of joy and the moments of love. Because that's at the center of everything. It's why we do all of the things we do.
Thank you. And Clea, I am going to turn our last question to you. and really reflecting on your reflection, Justin, how much, unfortunately hadn't changed. So what would you like for the audience to take away as kind of final comments, final thoughts, action, perhaps?
Yeah. That's a heavy question, right?
I
It's
know.
like, what do you do next? And I think, part of what I could say is echo sort of the sentiments that were shared in the previous panel. And that is that the work is ours to do. And when I mean ours, I mean occupational therapy as a profession, but also specifically white practitioners, right? It requires people getting uncomfortable. It requires shared power. It requires people getting out of the way, right? It requires us to dismantle these oppressive systems that have maintained occupational therapy in the way that it has. And so we need to really look at what we're doing from the top all the way down to the bottom, from what our leadership looks like, from how we're actually instituting justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, not just in our practice, but in our education. What are we doing in our occupational therapy programs that promote these principles? And like Kimberly mentioned, and how are we measuring the successes of what we're doing? Are we, as programs, actually partnering with the communities where our programs are, so that folks in the community are exposed to occupational therapy, not in moments of crises and trauma, but as partners in healthcare, as young as elementary school? There's just so much more that we can do that is beyond us just coming in this space tonight, which I am thankful for you all for doing that. But to take what we're saying here back to your programs, back to your communities, back to your national organizations, and say, time for action is overdue. And let's be strategic and mobilize, and then actually implement.
And thank you. Those are beautiful and kind of very clear and directed words. And so I thank you for that. And I thank the three of you for your participation on this panel, as well as your role in bringing Black voices in OT to life. So thank you so much. And so with that, we will start to close out the conversation for this evening. I do want to highlight, I believe that in the chat they will be posting a link to take a post survey. So make sure that if you have not located that link already, that you do so and fill out the survey. And I just want to thank everyone for engaging this evening, and to really lift up that call to action that I think that we heard several times throughout the evening, that this here is really a sharing of narratives and then engaging in a conversation, but to also take it the step further, to start thinking about ways to create institutional and systematic change, so that folks can identify spaces within the profession as a place of belonging, where they feel seen and represented, like we've talked about and seen throughout the chat today, and where others are welcome to come into the profession, not just even as OTs, but within the larger medical profession and other spaces. So thank you so much for your attention. And with that, I think we'll close out. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.